Hello everyone, this is Chromý and together we will continue the course Interdisciplinary Approaches to Language and its Use. In the last presentation we mentioned several factors or constraints which may influence the way how we process sentences. In this presentation we will discuss the role of frequency. We might predict that the analysis which is generally more frequent in the language tends to be preferred by the reader or hearer. In other words, more frequent analyses should be activated more than less frequent ones. This seems intuitive, but the problem is how to operationalize frequency. Frequency may be measured on an abstract syntactic level or with differing degree of lexical information. We can demonstrate the operationalization problem on a garden path sentence we already know. When analyzing the frequency effects in the processing of the sentence while Erica dressed the boy in the room cried, frequency may be operationalized in various ways. For example, we may use the general frequency of transitive constructions, subject, verb, object. Alternatively, we may work with the frequency of use of the verb to dress with a direct object, or we may calculate how often does the nominal phrase the boy stand as an object of the verb to dress. It would be also possible to work with the frequency for the whole construction Erica dressed the boy, and so on. In other words, there are many ways how to calculate the frequency, and different operationalizations lead to different results. In some studies, the subcategorization frame frequency or valency frequency has been analyzed. For example, in this study by John Trueswell, Michael Tannenhaus, and Christopher Kilo, differences between verbs like to forget and to hope were analyzed. These verbs are different in their subcategorization frames. They may be both used with a sentence complement, for example, the boy forgot Peter was smart, and the boy hoped Peter was smart. But the verb to forget may also be used with a direct object, for example, the boy forgot Peter. Moreover, the verb to forget is more frequently used with a direct object than with the sentence complement. The question is whether this fact may influence the processing of sentences with the sentence complement. Trueswell and his colleagues used items such as these. In English, it is possible to use the sentence complement with or without that. The sentences A and C are syntactically the same, but as we said, the verbs to forget and to hope differ in their subcategorization frame preferences. If this would play a role, it would be so that the processing of the sentence A is more demanding because the initial analysis would be that the nominal phrase the solution is the direct object of the verb forgot, whereas a similar analysis would be activated to a much lesser extent in the sentence C. Sentences B and D are control sentences where is no ambiguity after the verbs forgot and hoped. Trueswell and his colleagues in their self-paced reading experiment found that the sentence C was processed more slowly on the nominal phrase, the solution, than the sentence A, but on the other hand, it was processed faster afterwards. This is a clear demonstration of the subcategorization frequency effect. Altogether, we may say that frequency seems to be one of the important factors which play a role in sentence processing. However, we must say that in some studies the frequency effects were not found. Also, it is important that frequency is never a sole factor which influences processing. Therefore, it may interact with other factors, and other factors may also suppress frequency effects. Before we will conclude this presentation, I have one reading tip for you. If you would be interested in the role of frequency in sentence processing, you might read the paper by Reale and Christiansen, Processing of Relative Clauses is Made Easier by Frequency of Occurrence. If you enjoyed the presentations, we would be glad if you would like them on YouTube. That is all from me now. See you next time.